Good afternoon, panelists. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I think we had some great discussion in the first panel and we got some good points from that. Hopefully, we'll touch upon them in our discussion as well. But the topic, that we are discussing today, impact to investment, how clean tech can aid climate change mitigation. So I think it's a really important topic that we are discussing because December is a very busy month for media organizations. That's 1 month when we look at what took place in the year gone by and what will be the trends that will shape the coming year. And one of the things that that really caught my attention in December was Harvard University's geoengineering plan. And that's clearly a different level of technology, different scale of technology, but it gave us an indication that clean tech will be something to look on in the coming year. And that's what I want to ask you in your opening comments, that what are the trends that you are seeing in this clean tech space? And most importantly, how they are moving beyond the traditional sectors of solar and wind, because the primary clean tech revolution happened in these sectors. Smita ji, if you would like to start.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, and a very happy World Environment Day to everybody. I hope, and pray, and I'm sure we all do, that it doesn't become a tokenism and a one-day, exercise like many other such days become. Great question. And I think in terms of where we are at, and I will keep the opening remarks brief. I understand that, you circle back to me with more questions. Essentially, before I start, maybe I'll introduce Social Alpha, the organization that I represent. Social Alpha is an enabling platform. So we are a not-for-profit. We call ourselves a multi-stage innovation curation and investment and venture development platform. So the idea is that we support enterprises working on science and tech-based innovation in very early stages. We provide very patient seed capital, but also the other non-financial support in terms of overcoming their various valleys of death. And I lead the work in climate and sustainability at Social Alpha. So what are the trends? Yes, we are trying to go beyond solar and wind. And while large-scale renewables still will be about solar and wind, the decentralized renewable energy part, right, which has been something that's been looked at, but the kind of attention it's been getting in terms of the innovation space, and how startups and enterprises are engaging with it. That's one wonderful trend. The other trend that has been useful in climate tech is the kind of, it's a start, right? It's a sector that's just unfolding and starting, but the whole waste to value sector in the clean tech space, not just waste to energy, yes, waste to energy, the whole revival of the biogas that we are seeing in terms of new innovations coming up, both in the technology and in the business model and approaches, but also waste to value overall, right? And across waste streams. So that's been a big sort of a silver lining. That's what we're beginning to see. Like I said, there has been some push, some movement in terms of the deep tech, the battery storage tech, which is the bottleneck. We all have to understand clean tech sector will go as far as the bottlenecks would let them, right? And battery storage is a big bottleneck, and where, let's be honest, India in terms of its innovation is far behind some of the other countries. But the idea is to not just find a solution in the country, but also something that's globally acceptable. And we are seeing some amazing battery chemistries, innovation in very new battery chemistries come in. Both flow batteries as well as solid state batteries for mobility, for stationary applications, large scale as well as decentralized, but they're all in very early stages. So while, to answer your question, there are a lot of positive trends coming in, there are still challenges. And I won't say those trends will lead to anything or create much of a dent unless we fixed in the entire ecosystem in terms of financing being available at various stages and of various types. Not just grant funding at some time and then VC funding at a later stage, what happens in between. And then also, other enabling systems, for example, R&D labs, proper testing facilities, opportunity to be able to do, pilots and, so on and so forth. And maybe I'll dig deeper later, but good trends need a lot of ecosystem support to move forward.
Thank you, Smita ji. Sanchita ji, I'd like to come to you. What are the trends that you are seeing in this space?
There is some phone call. Thank you so much for having me here, and congratulations to everyone here for this auspicious day of 50th day of World Environment Day. And in 1972, we had launched this day. And congratulations to Businessworld, BW Business also for doing this webinar on such an important topic of climate change, and which recently the Stockholm meeting summit has finished in this Friday only. And I had seen the recommendations, and I was among so many that the health of the people should be primary, and prosperity should be the primary of the health, earth health. But what I was a little disappointed is nowhere it is mentioned that they mention the prosperity, but nowhere it is mentioned that use with care or reduce the waste, or consumption reduction and all those things. And we all know that the world is grappling with the waste, the kind of waste we are generating. And with the increase, manifold of increase in the population, everywhere the waste is going to be manifolds everywhere. And so going beyond the wind and solar, there are so many sectors, as just now Smita told that about the EV, but EV sector is there, that biofuels in energy, the main focus is on coming out of the fossil fuels. The biofuels is also an upcoming side where in fact, the government has also modified some of the EIA rules for giving them a priority for. So there are quite a number of technologies which are coming in this sector. Biofuels is one, EV, then hydrogen, the green hydrogen, which probably Professor Yadav would be speaking in the next panel or something. But green hydrogen is a big area where the new technology is, this is the upcoming technology, and we can have a little, how do I define, like it is, we can have a little go away from the fossil fuels. Likewise, there are, like just now, the electrical, even the air, like Airbus has now recently announced that they will be having zero emission planes by 2035. That means they will be shifting towards the EV sector. So, but the main problem, what I see is we are going ahead with so many things, but the life cycle analysis, basically, which we keep talking about, the circular economy and so many things, but we are not doing the life cycle analysis. Like EV, we are talking so much, but there are so many batteries, new batteries are coming, but we all know we do not have for the present the recycling technologies. So therefore, we need to concentrate more on life cycle analysis and ultimately what is good for the decarbonization, not that we are throwing the baby along with the water. So that is the main my concern. Secondly, hydrogen also has its own bottlenecks, and we need to, the government is also giving a push towards that, and it can be biofuels is a good sector, and quite a number of other technologies, like when you're talking going away from the winds and solar. Even in the hydropower is a big area, but now the focus should be on the more towards the micro and mini hydropowers, and they are now the turbines, micro turbines have been invented, and the rotary turbines and all these. So these will help in creating power and going away from the fuels. So basically, these are the few of the trends which I see in the environment sector, and this thing would be that we should focus more and more on the recycling technology. And the first panel also gave a little bit about the recycling technology, and we need to, so much plastic is being generated in our country, and then quite a good work is also going on, but recycling should be the main focus. Recycling, reuse, refuse, reduce, all these things should be the main focus for mitigating the environment, mitigating the climate change effects.
Yeah, Shantanu, you are clearly in this space. What are the trends that you are seeing?
Arjun, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, BW World, for the opportunity. Happy Environment Day to all. So Pi Green basically is into capturing particulate matter emissions at source. We've developed a patented filterless technology which addresses the issue of particulate matter emissions. We've seen what happens in Delhi, Delhi being poster child during, like you mentioned, the winter months. That's when it comes to light, obviously. So we are looking to capture particulate matter emissions at source, be it diesel gensets, heavy vehicles, industrial boilers. One major pollutant, basically very typical to urban cities like Pune, Mumbai, or Delhi, Bangalore, that's come up during the pandemic, unfortunately, is pollution from crematorium burning. There were many PILs filed in various high courts. That is one problem. Obviously, we are also looking to reduce. What we've done is we've developed a technology which looks to do away with conventional solutions like filters, water. You can't be using water, basically a wet scrubber. You can't be using water to curb or rather to purify air. So we have tried to do away with conventional solutions, brought in, developed a technology, developed it in India, and we're using it to address problems of emissions at source. So basically, the big gas guzzlers and the big wood guzzlers, I would say, the big polluters like industries, is what we are trying to do.
Thank you so much, Shantanu, and hopefully we'll touch the pollution aspect later in our discussion as well. But Wilma ji, I want to know from you that you've listened to the trends, and we're talking about the impact that these innovations are making. Can you elaborate on the impact that these innovations are making in climate change mitigation, and carrying forward from the first discussion that we had? One of the important points was that yes, mitigation is there, but we have to make our societies resilient as well, and adaptation is something that's not really focused on because we are skewed towards mitigation. So your views on this?
Yeah, thanks everyone, and happy to be here celebrating together Environment Day. So Saahas Zero Waste is an organization that works with waste. So I could, and when we say working with waste, we are looking to plug into solutions around zero waste systems, because ultimately we need to look at how nature gives us so much of goodies and so much of abundance in terms of what we use on an everyday basis, and we need to give back. Now, around waste, and these are conversations that we are having as a sector, those of us who work with, with circular economy systems, we are actually putting great caution on the word tech. Okay, because tech becomes this magic word that makes waste disappear, that kind of does not put enough of focus on industry, doesn't put enough of focus on behavioral change, because we believe that tech will solve all our issues. So therefore it is so important, and the trend today is, and I'm speaking to an industry body here, so I would like to be upfront and say that the trend is greenwashing. And this is something that we need to move away, because when you're looking at solutions for waste today, waste circular economy solutions, even recycling is, should be taking a back step. The actual thrust should be on reuse, and I think Mr. Jindal said that very well. Refilling, reuse, repair. This is the thrust of the new economy. So today we are trying to live in a world where we believe that net zero again will be our solution, and we have to increase our GDP. But if we have to go for growth, then let us look at an industry that revolves around repair, reduce, refilling, because if we have a commitment to climate mitigation and to the environment and nature, then this is the steps that we have to take. Now, when you come to waste, the technologies that we really should be going after, in recycling, we should be looking at closed loop systems. Whatever plastic we generate, whether it is this PET bottle, let's look at design so that there are just one type of plastic in that bottle and not 3 or 4 as we currently have. And let's bring in the technologies which is currently happening to an extent to make sure that bottle comes back as a bottle and comes back into a food grade kind of plastic, so that it will, it will reduce the consumption of virgin materials. When we look at composting, and when we look at trends and technologies around management of organic waste. Again, there is this whole trend towards a 24-hour composting system, because that seems to be easy. That seems to be, what you can easily do. You don't have to have, you can have this huge tech park with thousands of acres of space, but you don't have space for composting. So you kind of look at technology to crunch the time for composting, which is normally 30 days to 24 hours. And we know that that is not possible. So our technologies in our choice should be a plug-in for tech, working along with nature and people, because nature, people, and technology together will bring us the solutions and not tech alone.
Right. Thank you so much. Captain Satyendra ji, your views on this, how these technologies are creating an impact?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the founder director of the Council for Solid Waste Management, which actually aims at an integrated approach to waste management. Now, normally when someone says about clean tech, it's always about energy, whether it's batteries or solar power or wind power, etc. But there is a lot of climate tech coming in the form of micromobility, in the form of low greenhouse gases for heavy duty mobility, be it at sea, because our shipping consumes a lot of fossil fuels. There is tech coming in that region. There is a lot of tech coming in the food, agricultural, and land use technology. Because if you see that as per a PwC report, almost 74% of the food, that is the edible food, is wasted. And that is happening because of poor packaging, poor logistics chain. Add to it what Mrs. Rodrigues said about the plastic packaging, the single-use packaging, or what Mrs. Jindal said about the small-scale packaging. So we need to develop tech in that field, because that is where I believe a lot of waste is being generated, which is contributing to climate change, because we are not able to handle that waste that is generated. In other areas, what I understand, a lot of development is going on in in climate tech is about methods for capturing greenhouse gases, which Shantanu said. He was talking about particulate matter, but there are others who are trying to sequester CO2, etc. And of course, recording and analysis of climate and earth data. What I would like to focus on being into the waste management sector is that we need more technology, like Mrs. Rodrigues said, in the manufacturing of products, packaging, which are reusable. Let's not go the recycling way, so just yet. Let us try to reuse these products. And that is where we have to have systems like deposit return systems. We have to have some kind of a technology to assist in segregation of waste at source. If the product packaging is made suitable for an individual to segregate at source, it will be that much more easier, because we're looking at a behavioral change out here. I would also like to caution one thing about this. A lot of talk about green tech in terms of solar panels and windmills and all that. But we need to start looking at what we are going to do with these things 30 years down the line, because then we are going to have a humongous task of sorting out these panels which have already been used.
Right. Thank you, Captain Satyendra. Smita ji, I would like to come back to you. You mentioned about elaborating on the funding aspect as well in your first answer, and Wilma ji, shed light on what's greenwashing. How's the venture capital flow into the sector? And given how ESG has been on the rise in the recent years, are investors going through what they call as green fatigue? What's the scenario like in the sector?
Fatigue would be ironical to call it, because it's a sector which has just taken off, right?
Yeah.
And it's at such super early stages, and honestly, nobody is looking at. None of the VCs are looking at early stage innovation, right? So what they're looking at are established, de-risked innovation. And that is basically, what has been happening for 20 years, whether it's in renewables and mostly in renewables, right? In the name of, climate, and some aspects of offsetting around either deforestation or renewables. That's the kind of funding that's happened, right? Where is the tech part of it? Where is the early stage tech part of it? And where is the funding appetite for it? Now, we are talking of a sector that's not just trying to create impact, it's trying to retrospectively create impact. Let's understand, when we say net zero, we are saying mitigate, and I'm glad you asked somebody this question, and I want to touch upon that. We are trying to mitigate what we are emitting, because clearly our ways of living are not sustainable. Second, we are trying to adapt, because what we've done in the past is trying to is already causing trouble. So we are trying to adapt to what's already happening. And third, we have to retrospectively correct ourselves. So we have to capture the amount of carbon we've emitted in the past, not just reduce our emissions right now. And all of that makes this whole space super complex. We have to, run on say an escalator that's running backwards, right? That is the kind of motion, and there's no VC funding. Honestly, there's some R&D funding in early stages, but otherwise where most of the tech is. A recent International Energy Agency report, and this is just energy tech, like Sir said, clean tech is much bigger and energy still gets more attention, said that around more than 50% of technologies that have the potential to solve the world's problem and work towards net zero are in nascent stages, not reach the market, but in very early stages, right? So VC funds are not even looking at it. They're looking at ones that have become commercial, that now are no more impact in the impact space. They're basically at a scale where they're making business sense, right? Forget VC fund. Where are the other sort of funds, right? Whether it's in debt or equity or grant money, there's a dearth of capital for this space, because we are talking about something that will yield, one, it's high risk. Second, most of the technologies are deep tech. And third, we are talking about something that you can only measure impact of potentially. There's nothing to demonstrate, and it's not straightforward. The theory of change, so to say, is not to say, even typical impact investors would shy away, because it doesn't say, okay, 50 people benefited out of this, right? The scale is humongous, but also so is the complexity of the problem. And therefore, the space doesn't have funding, absolute dearth of funding in terms of quantum, scarcity of funding in terms of distribution. Like Sir rightly said, some sectors get more funding. If you break it down, even in those sectors, it's the platforms that get funding, not deep tech, right? So in EV, the platforms get funding. Clean tech car, the entire cumulative figure, aggregate figure goes up because of what Ola raises, right? Not because of what the face of mobility is or the innovation in mobility is looking like, and funding is not distributed. So there is dearth of funding, there is distribution gaps, but also the organizations that have raised funding, if you map their journeys, and because we work with startups, some of them end up raising money at different stages. They go through difficult cycles. It's not easy for them to raise money. So you end up taking whatever capital you're getting. Maybe you need working capital for debt for working capital. You end up raising equity and diluting yourself. These are not optimal scenarios for enterprises. We are not encouraging innovation. Then there is grant at some stages, and then there's nothing right after it, right? The appetite to take risks, the appetite for failure, the appetite to have bigger ambitions and goals is missing in the funding world altogether. Not just VC, but all over, particularly with respect to the climate space. And that is what is the biggest bottleneck right now, to be honest. But just having said that, like I said, tech for adaptation, tech for mitigation, and like you were rightly saying, and carbon capture, of course. But adaptation tech, again, has to be looked at very seriously, because we're talking about a country that wants to go green and needs to go green. At the same time, also make sure that everybody has access to energy, right? So how do we make sure we're doing? So our problem is far more complex. We have to make sure everybody has access to all these infrastructure that we're talking about, whether it's energy or whether it's waste solution, sanitation, basic drinking water. At the same time, it's affordable. At the same time, it's being run through green means, whether it's energy or resource efficiency or the kind of materials we are using. So our situation is very complex, and funding, fatigue at the end of investors, honestly, is probably the last thing I would agree with.
All right, thank you so much. Sanchita ji, before I get to elaborate the others on more on the technologies that they're working, your quick comments on.
I'm not basically from a business point of view or something, but what I see a very little example, and I completely agree with what Smita just now told, that fatigue is not at all. This is the evolving just evolving field. How can there be a fatigue? But the how much emphasis we are paying on the new tech or high tech or technology for environment, or this is very evident from the that I have seen few episodes of that now, the Shark Tank or something which is going in our TV. So now they are they are the investors which are taking for the startups, and hardly there is anybody in the climate change sector or in the recycling sector or maybe some new innovation sector, and most of them are either in the cookery or decoration or something. So I was wondering where when we talk so much about the startups and solutions for the environment needed and solutions, but where are the people working for these? So probably we need to take care of both sides, like probably as Smita just now told, that the startups have to undergo too much in this sector, and that is why although there are quite a number of new innovations happening in these startups, but still they are going through a tough time in this. So we need to ease that, and probably with easing down all these what you call roadblocks, and probably we will have more of the capital coming into these. So I don't have much what you call I'm not a business from a business side, but whatever little bit from my general this thing I can say is that we need to plug all those loopholes and roadblocks. Then only probably more of the venture capitalists and the other capitalists for the startups would also start coming into this sector.
Shantanu and Wilma and Captain Satyendra ji, my next question is around the, if you could elaborate on the technologies that you people are working. As a Delhiite, as Shantanu said, air pollution is a annual affair, especially in the months of winters. But recently, even in May this year, the pollution was at a 3-year high. When we talk about waste management, we have 3 big landfill sites in Delhi. As a kid, I remember when I used to go from areas of Ghazipur and Balaswa, I used to ask my father that we have mountains in Delhi as well. But that's really a problem in Delhi as well. So Shantanu, first I would like to start from you on the air pollution control technologies. If you could elaborate, and then we'll probably talk to Wilma and Captain Satyendra ji on the waste management aspect.
Correct. So, in the words of Smita, we are in the business of mitigation or maybe repairing the damage that is being done right now. We are talking about EVs. We are talking about renewable energy, 500 gigawatt by 2030. But what about the 30 lakh diesel gensets that are being operated in India? What about the crores of vehicles, diesel vehicles that applied on Indian roads, heavy vehicles, to be more specific? We are trying to address the lakhs of industrial boilers using biomass or coal-based boilers. We are trying to address the problem at source. Our technology, like I mentioned, being filterless, looks or has the potential to address the problem. This problem where the density of emissions is very high when you compare it to the other sources of pollution. So the kind of particulate matter emissions that all these industrial applications do emit needs something that addresses the problem of conventional solutions like filters, back filters, which or for that matter wet scrubbers, which end up in a landfill or is directly emitted into rivers. So yes, along with technology for mitigation, what we are also looking to do is, in the words of Mrs. Rodrigues or Mr. Jindal, we are trying to also create zero waste. So what we basically do is we convert smoke into powder form, which is you can touch and feel it. We try to dispose it off. We don't dispose it off. In fact, we try to look at forward uses of these. So few of the uses can be can be polymers, paints, inks. Someone in the earlier forum was talking about tiles, fibers out of soot or the particulate matter capture. So we are also looking to reuse this waste that we are generating instead of and rather avoiding it. from ending up in landfills or rivers for that matter.
Right. Thank you, Shantanu. Wilma ji, if you could take Delhi as an example and the problem that Delhi faces, especially the areas around those landfill sites, the harmful environmental impact for the people living near those land sites. What's technically been wrong with our waste management practices, and what's the gap that the waste management industry is trying to look at to bridge this?
Yeah, so we would be happy as an organization to work in Delhi, but there are just too many barriers. And that's the reason why we are not quite in Delhi working, because if we were in Delhi, our approach would be that you should really not have these landfills. And the reason why you're having this space is because you are focused on a disposal kind of approach. The approach is collection, disposal, and obviously when you don't have the intervening points where again technology can play a role. Technology can play a role when you have segregated waste. For instance, segregation has now become mandatory, and many, even Delhi and other cities, are kind of enforcing it. But what happens to the segregated waste? The segregated waste needs to be properly kind of you have technologies like AI and blockchain to actually follow the waste till it goes to a processing center. And in a processing center, or you can call it a material recovery facility, you would have that level of sorting taking place, and you would make sure that each of that sorted fraction of waste, whether it is textile waste or whether it is different kinds of plastic or paper or metal, it would go to different recycling facilities. So that's how you would actually make sure that your waste does not end up in the landfill. And for this, very often now you do have the solid waste rules talking about bulk generators managing their own waste, and we service bulk generators. But our service, our approach or our business model is a revenue from waste and a revenue from a service fee. Now, across Delhi, across even the elite communities of Delhi, you see a big pushback for people to even pay small quantities of money so that their waste doesn't go to a landfill but goes into a material recovery facility. Because all of us today are running professional businesses. I mean, we are a social enterprise. We are measuring our impact in terms of emissions and also the social impact. But we do need to have a professional setup, and we can't run systems informally. And that is how it was in the past, and that is how it continues now, but it cannot be like that in the future. So that shift in mindset is what we are missing in Delhi and in various states in the north, whereas in the south we've made some progress. We've had policies really aligning with things happening on the ground. So I'm saying that people in Delhi, people in the North Indian states need to understand what they have to do, not just to kind of look towards the government and say, or the municipal corporation, and say the municipal corporation is not doing its job. It is the people that have to first take the step, start with, easy kind of solutions that are there. And there are organizations like us to help you in that journey.
May I intervene first? Because I'm from Delhi and I made a few of the rules. I can speak a little bit more on this. Basically, like all these landfills, we know that they have so much legacy waste there. So the government is now, the Delhi government has started working on the biomining of all these waste, and they are taking out the waste out of it. But basically, definitely that is not good enough, because today only there is an article in Hindustan Times about the Delhi scenario basically. So the waste is ever increasing. We had been seeing from 8 metric tons to now it has reached 11,000 tons. So and despite having 3 waste to energy plants, despite having CND waste recycling, we are still sending waste to landfills because our waste is increasing. And the main point, what just now Wilma told, is that we are not implementing segregation. We had, with so much research, we had included in the rules about the segregation, source segregation. And what in every presentation or every lecture or everything, I keep vouching for segregate, segregate, segregate. Segregation at source can really solve the problem to quite an extent, because then the recyclables will be sent to the recycling. So whether it's MRF or not MRF, whether it is something, but ultimately the point is that recyclables, wet waste should be put to the right logical end. And in this, basically what I think is a decentralized waste management, which we have included in the rules also, which is the key point, that unless the societies and the RWAs, they start managing their waste in a decentralized manner, the landfills will keep on increasing. So we need to focus on segregation and decentralized waste management treatment.
Right. Thank you so much, Sanchita ji. I just have 4 minutes left. My team is pinging me, Captain Satyendra ji. If you would like
I'll just give 2 or 3 points. One was what Ms. Smita was saying about the funding. I was reading a PwC report, and that report says that while more than 97% of the funding goes for mitigation methods, there is only 1% which is going into adaptation technology. So that has to increase substantially. Because new technology is going to take time, adaptation probably will be faster. Shantanu will be able to tell better. As regards to waste management, we need to have aiding solutions for segregation, both at source and at sorting centers. Maybe tagging of all plastic containers and all packaging material is a solution. There will be a huge pushback from the brand owners because besides being a cost, there will be accountability of what has come back and what has not. Because EPR also, like Mrs. Wilma said, there is a lot of greenwashing in the EPR, is what I'm told by people who are involved in that business. So we need technology there so that proper accounting of the returned waste also happens in that section.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining, and really hope that this sector, becomes